About a year ago, I was approached by the Chilliwack thrift store that they had received this unusual donation of objects. I guess what happened was an archaeologist came into the store, saw this collection on display and said, "Listen, you really need to contact someone at SFU. They have an archaeology museum and have them come and check it out." And it was incredible to see this very eclectic collection of rings and medallions come from this thrift store that, it was just on display. I think it was on sale before they removed it and brought it to us.
So one of the most exciting things about this acquisition is finding out what the story of these belongings is, what kind of a journey they got on in order to wind up here in the Lower Mainland in British Columbia. They've traveled thousands of kilometers, potentially, we don't know for sure. And so the investigative work of archaeology, the science that the students will undertake under Sabrina's leadership and guidance is really exciting.
We have a collection of 11 rings and 2 medallions. So it's hard to date them. I think it could be anywhere from the late antique period. So we're thinking, 5th, 6th century, all the way up into the medieval period. But that's all part of this really unique experience about having a collection that has no provenance, which means we don't know where they came from. I think from a student perspective, this is going to be one of the most unique courses that I've ever offered. It's not often that students get to be the first people to really research these objects from start to finish. So from accession to the publication of their final project in the museum, which will actually be on display, they get to experience the process of museum research from start to finish.
We've got potentially hundreds of generations of people who have worn these pieces or who cared for them, who shared them, passed them down to loved ones. Or on the flip side, maybe they're modern forgeries. The science that the students undertake will be able to tell us that too. So it's really, really exciting to try to think about what the stories that will emerge from this research might be.